ZombieTech. Welcome to ZombieTech, a forum for engineers, scientists, and inventors to ponder on the technologies needed to survive the inevitable zombie apocalypse.
She's Addie. I'm Whisker. We've got
that
Roy Eltham.
Confused me.
And
Hello.
Ashwin.
Hello.
And between the four of us, I think we can entertain y'all for about an hour.
I think so.
With my repertoire of funny voices.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Lance, you are a engineering student.
That's correct. Doing electrical engineering.
Fantastic. How long is that going to take?
I'm going to be done school in 2015.
2015? You're a second year. That's... What year is this?
He must be doing some sort of work.
Well, yeah, I'm doing co-op terms in between, so I lose 3 semesters to work, and I'm doing some extra courses because I figured, hey, I'm going to be there. Let's do 2 specializations.
Sure. Now, what's the...
What 2 specializations?
Electronics and electrical energy systems.
Oh, interesting.
And the fun part is those actually have a common course between them, so I only have to take 5 courses instead of 6.
That's handy.
Very nice.
And though I'm also taking the mechatronics option, so even more stuff gets piled in.
What's Mechatronics?
Mechatronics.
Mechatrons, as in like mecha? Like those big robots and such?
You've been watching too much anime.
Probably.
But yes, that's basically what it is.
See?
It's robotics. It's a combination of software, computer, and electrical engineering.
That's amazing.
Sorry, software, electrical, and mechanical. There we go.
So have you been involved in any cool projects yet?
Not as such. It's mostly just my own little cankering with various things. Like you saw the Jacob's Ladder I put up in the YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Those were pretty cool. And is that something you just put together, or was that like a lab project that you guys actually had to do?
Well, the way my school went, I actually went to a little local place to get my first year courses out of the way, and I'm good friends with the lab tech.
Oh.
So he also just basically let me hang out in the physics lab shop area during the summer, and he's just like, hey, I found these old, they're just basically units used to power old gas tubes, and he's like, hey, I found these old gas tubes. Anything we can do with them? Like, I took a look at them, and hey, there's transformers. Let's make some electrical arcs with them. So I started playing around with it, and that's how that project came around.
Wow.
Other than that, I just built 2 robots for him.
Now, is it enough voltage to like fry a zombie, or is this like worthless technology?
It's 11,000 volts, but it doesn't push enough current to do any major damage because a zombie doesn't have a beating heart.
Dang it.
Right.
It would kill a human, though.
Really?
Well, it would cause fibrillations, which would eventually lead to death if not corrected.
Brilliant.
Not enough to like melt zombie brains, though.
Oh no, you need more current.
But then
It
would...
might jolt them, though.
Yeah,
and
jolting's okay.
Since they're fragile, they might fall apart a little bit.
Right.
Isn't it just easier to use an axe or something for that?
Yeah, but that requires too much, like...
Right, but you
energy.
just you put a plate.
Energy.
You put a plate under the doorway,
this is
right? And they walk through the doorway and get blown up.
You know, these are the nerdly ways of, taking care of the problem, not the like bodybuilder jock way of taking care of the problem.
Right.
We have brains, work smarter, not harder.
Right.
Technology.
But see, and the other thing is we need
if
the
I did
axe
that,
for
I would
fire.
have just spent the day building a laptop stand.
I guess.
So if I went in there with an axe, yeah, that would work. But why do that when I could use Roy's like quadcopter to drop a grenade on their head?
Because you could just throw the grenade in there with your arm.
It's no fun.
Yeah, but you could use a quadcopter to take the grenade much farther than you could throw with your arm.
Right.
And be more precise with where it lands.
Right.
I guess.
Because it will have a camera on it.
So it does both surveillance and it, like gets rid of little mini pods of zombies that are roaming around.
Well, if you're looking for a cute little quadrotor to play around with, I think it's like a parrot drone or something. It's like this really, I hesitate to use the phrase dummy friendly, but it's a really...
Right, it requires an iPhone or iOS device to use right now. They haven't got the Android version out yet.
Yeah.
So
Although a
I
lot
don't
of people have
one.
actually hacked into it, and there is an Android client, and you can fly it from a Linux machine. The only thing that it's lacking is there's some bad latency in the video. They've gotten it down to 1 second delay.
Yeah, but
1 second is
that's
still
way
a
too
big
long.
lag for trying to fly something.
They're gonna the company that makes it is supposed to be doing an Android version, from what I understand.
Gotcha.
The AR drone.
Well, how much weight can it hold, though?
Not very much.
No,
See, that's
it's
the
not meant for that
unfortunate
kind of thing. It's just like a little toy. It's not supposed to do anything fancy.
And it has a built-in tiny little camera.
Chris Savage was showing us some videos last night of a Hex copter that was able to lift a liter of cola.
Right. They have the same company that makes the Hex also makes an Octa one with 8.
Wow.
And it can lift pretty heavy stuff.
Well, so first it would distract the zombies into like a tight area because they'd try to be going towards the noise, and then it could drop a grenade and kill them all. Right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Right. Brilliant.
So we've got a room in the live chat here. Insurgent is asking, do tasers work on zombies? And Ashwin touched on that a little bit because they don't have heartbeats. You're not really going to affect them that way. But do you think it could disrupt neurological activity enough if you gave them a big enough jolt?
If you can have the current actually passing through the brain, it could kill the brainstem. Other than that, you'll just get the usual muscular reactions, the muscles actually locking up.
That's not bad.
I was going to say, it will definitely work for tasing them because their muscles will still react to the taser, but it won't have the same after effect. Like you tase them, and while the power's going through them, they'll have the problems, but as soon as you stop, they'll just get back up and start walking at you.
So we were playing Left 4 Dead 2 a couple weeks ago, and there's a weapon in that game that is sort of like this bomb that you throw, and it's got a flashing light and a loud tone that it beeps.
The pipe bomb.
Yeah. What if you were to like replace that? You keep the beeper, right, to get them to go to it, but instead of it being like a pipe bomb, could you do something with like really big capacitors?
I'm not sure how that would be effective.
Well, when you discharge a capacitor through tissue, it can do some pretty significant damage if it's a big enough one.
Right, like
Yes,
burns
but
and
then you'd
such.
only be able to get one at a time. And that also depends on them actually making contact with the device.
Yeah. You might have to do something where there's like plates on the ground that the capacitor bank is attached to.
Yeah,
Get them to walk on to the...
You're talking. I like that, right?
So like that could be an entryway thing where you put a couple plates on the ground, and when you arm it, it's charged with the big capacitor bank, and when they stand on it, it zaps them. Right?
The reason why I asked wasn't necessarily because it's more effective, but because in the case where, society has collapsed due to this sort of situation, you no longer have an infinite source of things like gunpowder or other explosives like that, but it's a lot easier to like reuse something like a big capacitor over and over again as long as you have the ability to charge it.
Something occurs to me. You could just use the zombies instead of, killing them, harness them.
Oh
You could use them to you could use them to generate electricity.
How?
Okay. Couple examples I can pull off the top of my head. You could create some kind of put the zombies in a wheel, like a giant hamster wheel, or on one of those treadmill type things, and as they try and stumble towards you, they generate power. You could also have the material of the treadmill be made out of a piezoelectric material, so that whenever they step on it, the compressing the material generates electricity.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Yeah. That would be interesting. So you could have a whole ring of treadmills all the way around our
Property?
base.
Oh my god.
And they're just big treadmills going out for like 20 feet.
You know what happens
And-
though? You know
I can
what
see the
happens?
GE commercial now. We are into
It could totally work.
green
It's a
energy.
renewable energy source. You need more zombies, just, get anybody who's been convicted to a life sentence and throw them in the zombie pit.
GE is a green company. Zombies are green.
Whoa.
Whoa.
What was that?
We were just dropped off the desk.
Sorry, I was just wiping some dust off the top of my laptop monitor.
Yeah, we heard that. Very, very interesting sound there.
I'll just not touch it.
All right. So what?
So zombie power plants. That's a new one on me.
Oh gosh, you might want to patent that before it gets taken up.
Yeah.
Jeez.
The treadmill zombie power plant.
You know what's gonna happen though?
Sounds like a good music video.
What? Zombie treadmill? Maybe I need to write. Maybe I need to write this down. Zombie treadmill.
Zombies on treadmills.
Zombie treadmill power plant.
Okay, I'm gonna write this down. You guys can. Here's
Well,
my
the reason I
pencil.
suggest the piezoelectric material is that that's actually something that's being looked at to get cheap electricity in like train stations or places where you have high traffic.
So
Sure.
explain what it is, because I guess I don't exactly know.
Piezoelectric
Oh.
The
material.
basic
Just
idea
piezos.
behind piezoelectric material is that when you deform it, it generates a voltage.
Right.
And this, what you usually find in old barbecue lighters, what happens is when you push down on the button, you have a piece of material that deforms, and when it snaps back really fast, you get a high voltage, which creates the spark.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
there's some people looking at or creating floor tiles. I saw this in
Oh.
science, I think. And you could put these pretty much anywhere you want, and just people walking on them would generate electricity.
How much?
I'm not sure. I don't have actual numbers, but apparently doing the floor in Grand Central Station would take care of the lighting for the place.
Oh my gosh.
It's a pretty clever idea.
That's brilliant.
But it relies on,
what I-
it only makes sense in a place where you've got a really, a high density of
Well,
people.
So then
Yeah.
let me ask, how long does this last? Is this like a forever type of thing?
Well, if
So
nobody's
as long as you
hanging
have
out,
traffic, because it depends on the material actually deforming, so you have to have things moving over it.
Sure.
But if you're asking about the lifetime of the material, I'm not sure.
Huh.
It would vary with whatever you choose to build it out of.
I mean, because if you imagine, like, in our zombie bunker, right? There's going to be a whole bunch of people. The zombie apocalypse team is going to be there. We're going to be walking around, doing our thing, shoring up defenses at all points. So we'll be walking, but if we can get this piezoelectric material, then we can also get the electricity needed to light the place.
another thing that you
Right.
could add would be
Please supplement it.
a
Yeah.
solar panel aspect to those tiles as well, because the room is lit all the time. So you're paying to light the place, you might as well reclaim some of that by having solar panels on those tiles as well.
Yep, that works.
Huh.
It's all about reclaiming energy, right?
hmm
And when you're dealing with a situation where normal civilization and the infinite source of oil and all that is gone, you start to think about those kinds of things and how you can apply them in simple, smart ways so that you can make the most of what resources you have.
Or we could reinvent dinosaurs and then kill them off again so we get more oil.
Well, don't
And wait
you know
a
that
few million years. And
post zombie apocalypse, we can just drive around and suck out the bottom few inches of gasoline out of every gas station that'll still exist.
Yeah.
Didn't you see
just
that
to
movie?
answer Surgeon's little question here about charging his toothbrush, I don't have numbers off the top of my head for how much power they actually output, but I'm not sure if just, your bathroom would be alone to do it.
okay,
You'd
so
probably
it'd have
have
to
to,
be a
like-
pretty expansive area.
Yeah, you
With-
have to actually
lots of
generate a
traffic.
decent amount of traffic. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, you can walk your 2 miles then on this tile.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's actually something else that's being looked at. Creating gym equipment that instead of having like friction for variable resistance, you actually generate power when you move them. So instead of adding weight on, or sorry, well, not for adding weight on, but for things like rowing machines
Yeah.
or those little stationary bicycles, instead of adjusting the resistance with friction pads, you actually adjust the resistance by adjusting how much power it draws.
Wow. Wow. Finally. My gosh. That's awesome.
I know our buddy Jeremy Bloom over at
Sci Guy 14.
yeah, that's his YouTube channel, but he's at what school is he at?
Cornell.
Cornell. Over at Cornell, he's participating in their program to help do all sorts of stuff like this for their campus to sort of make their use of energy much more efficient.
Yeah. I wonder if he knows anything about this.
Oh yeah, he would know all sorts.
How
of
recent was this? Do you
kind
remember?
of thing.
And Surgeon says maybe if Pazio tiles in the bathroom are enough to charge the toothbrush, maybe a thermopile array in the toilet will work. It depends how hot your steamers are, I guess.
Oh boy, that's just
I don't know how effective are thermopiles at getting electricity.
that's just an inappropriate use of technology right there. Sounds like something they would do in the space station, though.
Wow.
Oh, here, let's take a look at Wikipedia.
Now, how long ago did you see this article in Science?
Popular Science, this is back in high school, so it was
Oh,
probably
a few years
Last
ago.
week.
Just a couple years ago.
this was probably 2008 or 2007.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's strange. You would think that by now they would have had some sort of headway on.
High school for me was a good 22 years before that.
Really? Dude.
Well, I graduated 20 years before 2007. So.
Wow.
Apparently, you're not supposed. Wikipedia says you're not supposed to confuse thermopile with thermopylae.
I didn't know there was a difference.
I didn't know that they were even confusable.
Yeah. Who knew?
I guess for people who suck at spelling, it could be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you done any work with Tesla coils?
Oh, I want to. I just don't have the spare parts to build one.
What would it take?
An ass load of copper wire. You have to get the big metal thing for the top. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it also takes a lot of patience.
Now I don't know too much about them except that they look really freaking cool. Can they
You
can they
actually
act
do
as
some
a
really interesting things with them.
what can you do?
Well, basically, it just emits a whole ton of electromagnetic radiation out of the top.
Yeah.
So this is where you see people like walking up to with fluorescent tubes and powering the tubes from like a meter or so away.
Yeah, our buddy Alan Yates has done a little bit of that, holding his fluorescent tubes up to very small but very
Effective.
high voltage transformers and getting the same effect. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's really kind of simple. You just basically have a massive step-up transformer inside there, and there's also some like capacitors and whatnot in there. But you're actually here. There's some basic schematics up on Wikipedia you can take a look at.
Okay.
But yeah, the whole idea was that back when Tesla was doing his work, he foresaw the world where nobody needed wires to get their electricity, and electricity could be transmitted directly to people's homes. But of course, the energy falls off like the field actually dies off really, really fast.
So has there been any attempts to try to extend that field?
Yes.
I was reading
was
an
at
article
MIT.
in Nuts and Bolts just the other day where somebody's selling a system that uses a fairly high frequency carrier radio wave, and the receiving end of it is sort of like a sipping circuit. So it's on the antenna. The antenna gets that carrier wave, and of course an antenna turns a radio wave into power.
Right.
And it charges up, a little bit of charging circuit there, and when it has enough, it turns its microcontroller on.
Oh.
And then the microcontroller actually gets a modulated number out of the signal
Yeah.
that's coming along that wave. And then, it does a few little tasks that it's set to do, And then when its power starts to dip below a certain point, it puts itself in a sleep state. And then
really
as it
cool.
recharges, it comes back on and it does a little bit more work. And they're sort of using this where you can have the transmitters around in a room and a robot out in the room, and the robot has its antenna on it, and it can get power from all of these different transmitters in the room, and it knows which transmitter it's receiving from because it hears the number modulated into that carrier wave that
We should totally
getting.
set that up.
It's very interesting technology, and
That
the
sounds great.
problem with Tesla's version is that when you're just blasting it out, it's not focused. It goes out in all directions evenly.
Right.
Whereas with a RF system, you're using an antenna that is a directional antenna, and you're able to focus that energy much more. Another good way of doing energy transfer without wires is to have two coils that become coupled. The like the Tesla Roadster modification was they put a coil in the parking spot for the car, and then one in the underneath where the engine would be in a normal car. And then when you park the car over the top, those coils sync up and they act as a transformer, and it just through transformer action puts energy up.
You mean
into,
induction?
There you go, induction.
Through transformer action.
Grrr. That's
There's
fucking
actually
cool.
another interesting thing. I forget it was a documentary on the Discovery Channel, but inductors are actually Volkswagen, the factory in Berlin, they actually have the whole thing open. Like, so you can actually go and take a look at it. The whole assembly line is like, there's glass windows, and the floor is all wood. And to give power to all the tool carts, they actually have inductors in the floor that power the tool carts.
Wow. So they're already using that technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although some of the fun stuff you can do with Tesla coils is actually create force fields.
Yeah?
There's I don't have any pictures off the top of my head, but I've seen there's a picture I remember of a car that basically has a field of plasma around it with a Tesla coil on the roof.
So I guess our bunker needs one of these force fields.
I'm not sure it would be very effective against a zombie because it would just hurt a lot, and well, depending on how much current there is, also it might be effective.
Yeah. Well, because zombies, I mean, like, you still have like the rest of your neural system that's electrically, requires electrical signals to actually function. So,
Well,
like the
that's true.
taser, if you have enough oomph behind it, the zombie's gonna freak out. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
There's also another really interesting application. I saw a video. I'll just look it up now. A fellow in, I believe it was the UK somewhere, modulated as the output of a Tesla coil using some IGBTs with an electric guitar.
Yes,
So
I've
he was
seen
actually
that.
he was playing a Tesla coil using his bass guitar.
Yeah, I've seen all
Okay,
sorts of interesting things like that where they modulate
Okay, I
it
just
with,
put the video in the IRC there.
with music, they can play music on the Tesla coils. It's pretty
Yeah.
interesting stuff.
You
Yeah,
can
they
even
have
modulate
a
right
band that
electric arcs that here's another example video where you can
They have
actually
a-
modulate just a straight arc.
they have a band that plays Maker Faire every year that
With
does
Tesla
that.
coils.
Yeah, and they have a cage that they put like this year they put Adam Savage in it, and they play and the sparks are hitting the cage, but he's inside, so he's safe.
Gotcha. So I got another question. We got another question from the IRC. So, Addie, will the hams be able to coordinate defense against the zombie apocalypse? Of course. Absolutely. I know, just as they treat it as with any other emergency, you make your contacts, you figure out what's going on in a specific location, and then maybe you can find like different hives of zombies and launch attacks against them.
When the power
Well, there's
goes
also a
out,
danger to running ham radios, though.
when the power goes out and the grid is down and there's no one else left, you guaranteed that the guys that are going to be stepping in to take care of any situation whether it be zombies or anything else, it's always the hams that get that stuff hooked up and, working again,
working.
because, no matter where you are in the world, there's hams, and those hams are the ones that train to do this all the time.
Yep.
They're constantly training on how to set up when there's no power to be had, and
Well, that's actually a
there's no
clause in the
infrastructure.
license.
What?
You're actually, by being a ham operator, you actually are automatically a part of the backup infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's part of having the license.
Yeah.
Although, have you guys read the Zombie Survival Guide?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, one of the things that the author mentions is that it's actually dangerous to broadcast during such an event because it could draw people right to you who have bad intentions, like wanting to steal and all your stuff and kill you.
Yeah, but
Sure.
we got turret guns.
We've actually been talking with some of our zombie team members on designing our own long distance repeater systems so that we can communicate across North America with one another through packet radio of our own protocol design. So
But
that
then
no
you
longer
still-
becomes a problem, because unless you have the technology to, unwrap that protocol, you don't know what we're saying.
Well, you still need network access.
And you still will. It's just certain repeaters can be closed. Except
Sorry,
to people
I
who...
might be misunderstanding. This isn't based over the internet, is it?
No.
No.
Okay,
this
good.
is radio packets.
Right, because
Like
the
frequencies.
most common packet repeaters I've heard of for long distance stuff just go through the internet now.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about actual, ham radio frequency, or not even ham, just radio frequency repeaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the right time of day with the right equipment, you can get fairly long distances for packet radio. And if you do it right, we've got people in enough places from the West Coast to the East Coast that we can actually establish a repeater network of our own, given enough time and effort.
Yeah.
If you're bored enough, you could even try bouncing stuff off the ionosphere and see how far you get.
That's how it works, yeah.
Yep. I haven't quite gotten to that aspect of my ham license education, but, I've covered it slightly, but I don't understand it enough. I'm just now getting to the band plans. So,
One of the things that actually convinced Daddy that doing a ham license would be fun is the whole concept of what happens when the infrastructure goes down, and being able to rebuild it yourself and be able to, continue on when everybody else is running around lost. She likes that.
yes. Because I think everything is made much more interesting by using it to answer the question, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? Right? Like farming. Could be boring as goodness, to anybody else, but then you say, well, what about during the zombie apocalypse? And all of a sudden it's much more interesting.
Well, you can't just go down to the market to get food.
No, you can't. No.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You
so
need
what
to
do you
farm
do?
to survive.
Right. And in all the zombie movies, there's some Tuscan villa that's already set up with people in their kumbaya hippie clothes saying, we have food and shelter. And things are glowing with the sunset behind, It's great. So, of course, it's true.
The facts of the matter are a little bit different than that. You gotta, know what you're doing ahead of time before this kind of stuff happens, so that you're ready, in case you need to be.
Right. And this goes with anything, just say a sudden hurricane or earthquake or, whatever other kind of disaster comes about.
Yeah, like I said previously, I think I mentioned in episode 1 that the zombie apocalypse is basically a metaphor for anything that... It's a metaphor for learning how to do the things that most people have forgotten how to do. We no longer know how to take care of ourselves properly without the infrastructure in place. And there's a whole lot of people out there that like to learn about how to do things again. And zombie apocalypse is just a good context and excuse for doing that.
I would be interested in putting a whole bunch of piezoelectric material together to try to see how much how much juice we could get out
We
of it.
have a lot of
Piezo discs, like little
Yeah.
tiny ones for like our cigar box guitars.
I've got like 100 of them or something.
You think we
So,
could get enough out of that?
I don't know.
Power a light bulb, maybe. So,
So, Roy, since the last time we talked, what have you been up to project-wise?
Not a whole lot.
too much.
I don't remember what all I mentioned. Did I mention the laser rangefinder?
No, the
Stuff
laser
last time?
rangefinder had not been put together yet. Mostly it was
Ah.
about your quadcopter, your
Pinball machine.
yep, pinball and autonomous stuff on your
Right.
rolling bots.
Right. I'm gonna sound kind of dumb since I was in the first episode, which will air probably like a week ago. I'll be like, I don't remember what I talked about last week, but it's been like a month or so.
It's movie magic.
So, Joe Grand, I don't know how many of you are familiar with him, but
Grand Ideas.
Idea,
Yeah.
Grand Idea Studio, made for Parallax, has made a laser rangefinder using a camera module and a laser diode and a propeller chip. And I was in the beta test program, as was Maker Dino and a few other people. And, you know, I built a little robot that used it to drive around. And then I started diving into the propeller code to try to make the camera read faster, because the code Joe had written could only do 2 captures per second, and you need to do 2 captures in order to do a range reading, one with and one without the diode, the laser diode turned on. So you can do a subtraction and find the diode easier, the laser dot easier. So I worked on the firmware for that to help speed it up, and I got it going double speed for range captures and like 4 times faster for just grayscale image captures.
It's a pretty
So-
significant improvement on speed. And how is that? Just by going through the assembly language and changing it up so that you were making the best use of the resources there?
Well, a lot of it was just in his original code, he was doing it in a little bit more traditional processor way, which was wait for the pin to go high, then read the data, you know, delay a little bit, wait for the pin to go high and read the data. But the thing is with the propeller, it's because it's very deterministic and all the instructions are very uniform. It's really easy to just know when you're in the right spot to read. And so I get it in sync at the beginning of a scan line, because it's basically reading pixels across the scan line. So you get it in sync at the beginning and then just do a tight loop, reading the byte, reading the IO pins at the appropriate time. Once you're in sync, you can stay in sync because of the deterministic nature of the propeller looping around. So I was able to reduce all the code down to the minimal to read it in and store it. And, store a whole scan line and then write it out during the blanking period at the end of the scan line, which gave me all the, a lot of the time back.
That's one thing that I'm always trying to convey to people about the propeller, is that you don't necessarily want to approach a problem the same way as you would with another microcontroller. You don't necessarily need to rely on an interrupt setting a pin, because it's deterministic. You can roll with it in lockstep in a very accurate fashion, as long as what you're dealing with is running off the same clock or one that you know the speed of.
Right. And you configure the camera module for the clock rate you want it to feed you the data at. And so I configured it to an appropriate rate got in sync with it at the beginning of the line, like I said, and then it's just a matter of as quickly as I can reading in the bytes and storing them into memory.
And that rangefinder, I'm guessing it works sort of like the laser goes out, it bounces off of something, it comes back, and the distance between the camera and the laser is known. So therefore, through a little bit of
It's a little different.
The farther away what it's bouncing off of, it's going to change where that laser strikes on the camera, right?
Well, no, the laser actually isn't striking the camera.
Well, the
What's happening,
reflection of it.
What happens is that you're basically looking for the laser dot hitting something out in the world. So you just see the red from that.
Yeah.
In this case, it's a red laser. And what it's actually doing is a triangulation of the camera and the laser are perfectly perpendicular to each other at a known distance apart. And the farther away the dot is from the camera, the more in the center of the view it'll be.
It's essentially what I was trying to say there, but...
Right, yeah. It's basically what you were saying. It's just, I'm explaining it the way Joe explains it. So as you get closer and closer, the dot moves farther and farther away from the center of the frame, and you basically measure the number of pixels and using some math figure out how far away you are.
It's pretty simple to detect where it is when you take first one picture, then another picture, because then you can see where the laser is by just, doing an OR.
Well, it's a simple difference. You just subtract one frame from the other.
Mm-hmm.
One has the laser dot on and one has it off. So you just end up with the mostly black image with a spot on it that is where the laser was at.
It's a very simple and elegant way of approaching it. It's cool.
Right.
And we got Oh, go ahead.
And the other thing it does is it only actually captures a strip of the frame in the middle, a 16 pixel tall strip. Yeah. So it's just, and it does a histogram of, after it does the difference, it does a histogram to find the blob area. And so you'll end up with several columns of those 16 pixels will be lit up and count a lot higher. And then it takes the center of that area as center of the brightest area, because there could be multiples because of reflections.
Yeah, one of the viewers in the live audience in the room here is asking whether that could be used for range finding to determine whether or not you should be using a rifle to shoot the zombies or your shotgun to shoot the zombies. And having watched Roy do his tests and Maker Dino do his tests, it seems like the way that it's set up right now, it's only really accurate for distances up to several meters. Would you say, Roy?
Yeah, it's about 10 feet or so maximum.
So if you let them get that close, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right. It's actually really good for shorter ranges. It's much more accurate on shorter ranges, whereas things like a ultrasonic sensor like the ping adapter from Parallax is good for medium and close. It's good for reasonably close, but it's not quite as accurate using sound reflection, ultrasonic sound reflections. It also has problems with being interfered with by other noise producing stuff. So like in my office where I have computers running and whatnot, the ping sensors are a little more noisy, whereas the laser isn't affected at all.
Yeah. And I imagine you could build something like this that would work for longer ranges. It would just be set up differently.
Yeah, if you had a much more powerful and higher resolution camera, and use a different laser with a brighter, like a green laser maybe, you could probably get the accuracy much better and farther away. You'd move the camera and laser diode farther apart, so it wouldn't handle close range very well, but it would handle the medium and long ranges much better.
We've been
Go ahead.
We've been doing a bit of experimentation here at Tymkrs with transmitting sound over lasers. And that could be useful for communicating when infrastructure isn't down, when you don't necessarily want to broadcast anything and you don't want to, have other people hear you, because unless you're directly in the path of the laser, you can't, receive that. So,
Right.
You've got a laser on one side, you've got the receiver on the other side, and it's just a straight shot.
Right, that would be a great communication device in that kind of situation, at least if you have line of sight.
Yeah, that's the downside of it. You do need line of sight, but we were talking to Mark Van de Wettering, and he was saying that some people have been doing things like bouncing light off of the moon to talk to people across the country, which is just
Wasn't that
so
something
cool.
they were working on? Still working
Yeah.
on?
Or when the
Well-
Apollo missions went to the moon, they left reflectors on the moon for the purpose
Yeah,
of
I was-
basically bouncing light back.
Oh,
Very
Yeah,
cool
and-
stuff.
that is cool.
Yeah, I've always wanted to get a telescope that was strong enough to be able to see that, and on a full moon night, try to see some of that.
Well, Mark Van de Wettering of the Brainwagon blog can make us telescopes.
Yeah, he makes his own telescopes, or
Yeah.
at least he used to.
We'll have to bring him on to see.
He's
the
definitely
magic.
part of our zombie team, I tell you what. That dude
Yeah.
knows some stuff.
Oh yeah,
He's smart and friendly, which is a good combination.
that's correct.
So, here on this show, we don't just talk about this crap. We actually go out and build some of it. I've been working on building a two-way laser phone for Addie and I to play with here.
Yep.
So you can communicate up and downstairs through it
So
with
Whisker
it.
can say, "I
Yeah.
want some coffee."
Yes, I can do
Or
that.
bring me a brownie.
Roy asked
Oh,
when
do
you're
you
going to
make some
be...
special brownies?
No.
No, because you
Oh.
know what happens then? The person who eats the special brownies and gets drunk ends up letting the zombies out of their rat cages, right?
Haven't you watched any horror movies, dude?
Come on. It's always the drunk ones that end up,
Or
letting
they
the
go
zombies
outside
into the
and get
compound.
eaten.
Say
and
no
turn
to
into-
intoxicants, because you're the first one to die.
Yep.
Unless you were promiscuous, then, even sooner.
I hate to be
Yeah.
racist, but if we were in like the 90s or something, I don't know, nobody else ever seems to notice this, but I just noticed a pattern in a lot of movies and TV shows where the black guy was always the first to die.
Yeah, but now we're much more forward-thinking, politically correct. So now you've got the Indian guy will die first. Sometimes it'll be the Chinese guy that dies first.
Hey.
We've been mixing it up.
Hey.
Yeah. But now it seems, in more modern movies, it seems to be more based on like what they do determines when
Yeah.
they're going
Right,
to die.
so promiscuousness and
Yeah, if
alcohol and
Being
If you got
Pretty.
busy in the first scene, you're the first to die. If you were doing intoxicants while they got busy elsewhere, you're
You were
going to
the
be the
second.
second one to die. It's,
That's correct.
And God forbid you were drunk and doing the dirty.
Yeah, just forget about it then.
You died before the movie started.
they found your guts
flash-
on the way.
No, they flash back to you because they see you as a zombie, and then they flash back to you being drunk and having sex.
And surgeon said, if you're naked in a shower, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because it's always the people who are like, oh gosh, I'm running away from zombies for my life, but I have to take a shower. Right? You're like, come on, just keep going.
There are very specific rules in the
I need shampoo.
zombie movie.
You're not allowed to shower.
Well,
all.
no. It's if you're running from hordes, you don't take the time to stop and take a shower. You can take a shower when you get to your safe destination, not in the middle of the campgrounds. You know what I mean?
I guess.
I mean, you haven't watched enough. We've learned. We'll teach you. We'll teach you.
I fully intend on having a zombie bunker that is well equipped with such things as showers. But
Well, yeah, 'cause we
if
don't
a
want
bunch of
anybody
dudes show
stinking
up with
up.
some movie cameras and they're like, "All right, do you know your lines?" I'm not going to get in the shower because I know what will happen because that's a movie.
That's correct.
In reality, showering is very important in a real zombie apocalypse because, it's could be spread through some sort of a virus or disease or something. So
You gotta be
cleanliness is
careful
very
though
important.
that it's not spread through the water, because if it's spread through the water, then we're screwed.
Yeah, that would stink. Should have our own supply of water, I think.
That would stink.
No pun intended.
Can't get anything past you lot.
But
Yeah,
please-
we'll have to have our own water cleaning system.
I know. I actually don't quite know how we're gonna do that.
Yeah, you should probably look up how they do some of that stuff on the ISS because
Well,
they're pretty good at
basic
it.
filtration you can do. They're now capable of making filters with nanometer-sized holes, so you can actually filter out viruses now.
Oh my gosh.
There's also stuff
that-
like
is that-
UV. You can use UV to,
Oh,
kill
I mean-
stuff.
Sure.
But I mean, like, you physically strain out the viruses with a nanometer filter.
Right, but the other thing about
Who's gonna
nanometer
touch
filters
the
is it'll
strainer?
strain out a lot of minerals.
And
also.
then, pardon?
It'll strain out a lot of the larger minerals.
that you need.
Yeah. So then you
So it's not much different than just boiling the water and catching the steam runoff. And
I guess so.
Do
We
it
just need
that
to
way.
learn how to boil our water. That's all.
you just
yeah, we need to
distill.
get. Somebody has to get a couple of condenser tubes.
Yeah.
Well, we got
That's
a
easy.
chemist for that. Anonymous
We-
is our anonymous, I should say. Lest I get on the
He-
list.
It's
Anonymous.
supposed to be anonymous. He spelled it that way on purpose.
Did he? All right. Well,
Yes.
Norman Chu of Anonymous. He's our resident chemist, and he's got all that stuff in his basement, so
Yeah.
we'll be good on that.
I don't know how much use it's going to be up there because he's up in Canada too.
Yep.
Oh, where is he?
Toronto. That's why I asked. I think that's why I asked if you were in Toronto,
Oh,
because we've heard a lot more about Toronto than we have
No,
Vancouver.
Ashwin here is West Coast.
Yep.
yay. I haven't
He's-
been to Toronto. I spent 4 days on a train to get there.
Was it
He's
any fun?
basically in North Washington.
Gotcha.
Canada is a very, very big place.
It is a big place. It's a lovely place. I went there as a kid, and I only remember that we went to 7 different hotels for our week-long trip. I'm not quite sure why my parents decided to go to a different hotel every day, but it was fun. I liked it.
Where did you go?
Oh, we went everywhere, like Toronto, Ontario. Is Ontario in the same area? I don't even know.
Ontario is the province that Toronto is in.
There's no city called Ontario.
Well, there
Oh,
are
my.
cities. There are cities called Ontario, but not in Ontario that I know of.
Well, okay,
Is there
so
is there a city called Utah somewhere? I don't know.
probably. I'm sorry, I haven't done my Canada research. You guys are just the nice people up north, you know. So,
I've only been to Victoria Island.
well, that's nice. I've been to Whistler, the ski resort. I went
Yeah.
there for a conference once. It was very lovely.
Yeah, Whistler's a pretty nice place to hang out. There's good rock climbing in Squamish if you're in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Seems to me like Canada would probably be a good place, especially farther north, because without a heartbeat and their own ability to create body heat,
Yeah.
they might freeze solid up there for a
I'm
lot
okay
of the
with
year.
that. I'm all right.
Again, we can draw more wisdom from the Zombie Survival Guide. An issue that arises is that in cold environments, the zombies would freeze. However, when they thaw out, they will just, keep on going.
Yeah.
Yeah, but while they're
So-
frozen, you hit them with a big hammer, and they
Ah.
shatter.
Chainsaws.
Chainsaws.
Frozen zombie chainsaw.
Where would we get the gas from though?
It could
To
turn
power the
into like a.
chainsaw.
It sounds like
Electric
a Canadian
chainsaws.
sport.
I have a battery powered chainsaw.
Yeah,
This
there's
is my
electric chainsaws.
rechargeable battery chainsaw.
That's brilliant. We should get a RF charged chainsaw, like a RF powered chainsaw.
Oh, so it's the chainsaw we get cancer from.
No, 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 no. Don't worry about cancer. We got to worry about the zombies first.
I see.
Tumors, we take out. We have a doctor for that.
Not so much in that situation.
He's taking out more. I'm pretty
Doctors don't run very fast. They get eaten.
Well, no, that's what our bait is for. Although, John R., we wouldn't want you to get eaten at all because we want you to stay our bait. No, no.
Yeah, you don't have to outrun the zombies. You just have to outrun all your friends.
Hey, that's horrible. But then if your friends are your team, and if you can't survive without your team, then you're screwed too.
I don't think our goal around here is necessarily just plain old survival. I think our goal is more along the lines of rebuild civilization.
Better.
Right.
We have loftier goals here.
Yeah.
And if John Raffi needs to be eaten to make those goals happen,
We
It
just
might occur.
That's horrible. That's horrible. No, because he's our cameraman. He's the one that's got to let the rest of the world who might be alive know that we're alive and safe. Like online vlogging, this YouTube.
Who's
thing.
going to be able to watch it during the apocalypse?
I don't know.
well, that's what the Packet Radio Network is for, right?
There you go.
We've got to rebuild communications between places, so, it's a good starting point. I mean, the bandwidth is going to be crap. No more YouTube.
Now, what game do you guys have up there in Canada that is easy to hunt?
Let's see. We got
Everything.
deer, coyotes, French people.
What? That's horrible. That's horrible. We got a Frenchman here. We better watch out for him.
I didn't recommend eating the Indian contingent. I just said that, you're
That's
all...
because there's not much meat on them.
That's true.
Oh,
Now,
the French do?
Chinese food is pretty good.
Hey,
I must admit.
back up off this.
Was that too risque?
Oh my. Oh. My mind didn't even go there. Come on. Be mature.
We need to figure out
Gosh.
how many times we can get Addie to go, come on. We've got like 2 or 3 already.
Oh. The come on count for today. 3.
So there will be no hunting of Acadians and New Frantians
I
there.
think we should just rule out cannibalism altogether.
Yeah,
That's probably
let's
a
just
good
start
idea.
With that. Let's
Yeah.
just start
Yeah.
with that. Although Whisker
in
is
favor-
fond of
Let's leave
eating
the people
babies.
eating to the zombies, huh?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, let's do that. Because when you started eating people, we might have to kill you. Because maybe you've turned into a
That's
zombie.
a pretty good indicator that you're next on the list.
You're
there.
a zombie. No matter how
Someone
many
in
showers you
the
take.
chat room is suggesting slow scan toy makers. Slow scan TV is a way of transmitting images.
Via satellite.
Via radio,
That too.
ham radio, and we had a little bit of experience with that this past week, maybe week and a half. They released the Aerosat one from the International Space Station.
They just hucked it out.
And,
threw it out of the window.
Brainwagon, regular in the room here, actually went out in his yard with his handheld ham radio and a lawn chair and pointed his antenna straight up in the air and calculated when that bird was going to fly by and recorded the transmission that it was making. And he brought it into his computer and ran it through the slow scan TV software
That's
and
cool.
actually decoded the images that the satellite was sending down.
Which is super cool.
Very neat stuff. And this last week on Ham Nation, they were talking about not just slow scan TV, but full NTSC speed
What's
TV.
NTSC?
Never the same color.
Face palm.
It's the standard for American television before HD TVs came out.
Yeah. So, but they're
Never
able
the same
to
color.
transmit NTSC speeds, which is like 29 point something frames per second over ham now with audio.
pretty impressive.
So, it's just the same as TV before they switched over to digital TV. It's the same type of signal, and you're able to do that now with ham equipment.
Well, that's
It's really neat. So we could do toy makers, and it wouldn't even have to be slow scan. It could be full frame.
We could
Great.
report live from the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We could do like one of those National Geographic documentaries on a zombie.
That's right.
Here we see a zombie in its natural environment.
Let's watch as it hunts. Oh,
and
crap.
if you guys, anyone here listening that kind of likes that idea, there's actually a book out there called Feed, about
Oh, it's
post zombie life. It's been like, I don't know, 15 years or whatever, and the zombies are still around. And there's sort of like this culture of bloggers that go out in armored vans and take video of, poking the zombies with sticks as sort of entertainment and writing fan fiction about zombie hunters and that sort of thing. It's a really cool book.
It's actually really good.
You should check it out. It's called Feed.
Do you think there'd be a version of Jackass in a post-apocalyptic zombie universe?
I'm sure.
Zombie ass.
There's always going to be dumb people.
Always. Not in the zombie apocalypse team, because nobody's going to get drunk or be promiscuous or have to shower in the middle of running from them.
Well, that's mostly because most of the zombie team are
Brilliant.
middle-aged folks who are far more interested in creating emulations of old computers than they are in that sort of shenanigans.
Oh, speaking of which, if anybody has a copy of Windows 98 Second Edition on CD, I would love to get in contact with you because I found my old license, but I can't find the CD.
You should check eBay. I'm sure somebody out there is
willing to sell Windows 98.
I'm not sure you really need to do that. You could probably set up a compatibility mode in Windows 7.
I have tried everything to make this run. It just
Have you
does
done?
not.
Which game is it again? Have you done a search to see if anybody has done a patch for the game so it'll run on at least XP?
I have spent a lot of time before giving up and finally attempting the solution. Believe me.
Okay, because I know that Deus
patches
Ex
don't-
and quite a few other games have patches that make them run on XP or newer OS.
Deus
Yeah,
Ex,
but
there
the
was
issue
an
is that
awesome
the engine
game.
used the Voodoo graphics cards, so it's old.
So do you have a Voodoo graphics card to stick in your machine to run this game?
Well, that's the thing. No, you can't get those anymore. They're just old and gone.
I have one
Are you serious?
Bam!
somewhere. I
Roy's
have an
got a
old Voodoo.
significant
Roy's got
collection.
everything.
You
Probably
want-
still works too.
Yeah, it's just a regular Voodoo 1, not a Voodoo 2. I can't remember if I have a Voodoo 2 still or not.
That would work out incredibly well. Yeah, the game I'm trying to run for everybody who's listening, it's an old game from 1999 called Independence War, which is basically a space combat simulator that's realistic. So you actually can take manual control with thrusters and fling yourself around, which is really, really fun.
So let's see. That pretty much wraps up our hour here for this week.
That's quick.
Thanks, Roy and Ashwin, for hanging out with us here.
No problem. I always enjoyed talking with you guys.
Likewise,
And,
likewise.
We'll be back next week. We'll probably shake it up and switch out for some other guests here. And we'll see what kind of trouble we can get in with them.
Sounds good.
See you guys later.
Bye.
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 See ya.